welcome to this session which is called Overcoming Anger. Are there any angry Brahmins around? No? No. None of us get angry anymore, do we? We just say Om Shanti and everything is fine. In fact, of course, it's not. And we've been around the cycle and we've got at least 1,250 years of anger inside us, if not more, depending on how we behaved in the Copper Age. So the idea of this session is to just give you a bit of an outline of a sort of course which has got developed over the years. It started with a talk back in London about 5 or 6 years ago. Somebody asked me to give a talk on anger. I don't know why they picked on me, but because I'm very peaceful. About 100 people came to the talk, which was much more than normal. And we realised from that there was quite a demand for looking at anger and overcoming it. So one thing has led to the other, and I've ended up giving lots of talks on this subject and creating a 4-part course, which I think I presented a couple of years ago to quite a few BKs in Gyan Sarovar, and as a result of that the course ended up going all around the world to different places. So I know they do it in Israel and they do it in Pakistan, and there's probably lots of other countries as well. And it's a very simple course, very straightforward. There's 4 parts to it, and it seems to have a magical effect on anybody who takes it. So although it's... sorry, am I speaking too fast, or do I need to slow down at all? Slow down a bit. All right. So it seems to have a magical effect on anybody who does the course, whether they're Brahmins or whether they're general members of the public. So usually it is members of the public, but it works just as well with Brahmins. And I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Quite often people call it an anger management course, and I always like to correct them, because it's not about managing anger, it's about overcoming it. So there's lots of anger management courses in the world out there which are all based on the assumption that anger is normal and natural, and it's something which you have to manage, just like a medical condition, like a heart condition or diabetes, something like that. And of course we know better than anyone else that anger is not actually part of our original nature, and therefore it's not something which we need to manage, because it doesn't really belong to us in the first place. It's just something which we've picked up over time. It's a pattern of behaviour which we've learned, and therefore it's something which we can unlearn, and it's something which we can eliminate from our lives. Would you agree with that? And that's really, obviously it's the foundation of the whole of the BK approach to life. We are beings of peace. But having said that, we do have very deep sanskars of anger, and they can erupt at any time. And before becoming a Brahmin, I used to be very angry. I was angry with my ex-wife, angry with the kids, angry with the boss at work, angry with the government, always going on demonstrations against wars, getting angry about the wars. So really fighting anger with anger. And then I became a Brahmin, and I transferred all that anger, brought it with me. And the first person I was angry with was Baba, because the first time I was introduced to Baba, everyone else seemed to have a very nice experience, went wah wah, and the only thing I could say was, I hate you. And that's because all the things that have been done in God's name, to me in the past. So that was very interesting, and I received lots of love from Baba's picture. I'll never forget it. I'm saying I hate you, and there was all this energy radiating out towards me. And I think honesty is crucial. If you want to deal with your anger, you have to actually acknowledge it and accept it and recognize that it is a problem, and not suppress it and pretend everything's all right. So being angry with God, it was just the start of it. Quite often I've got angry with the centres in charge. I can remember on one occasion when I was a relatively new Brahmin, and the sister in charge wanted to redecorate the course room, which was a lovely old Victorian building with lovely ornate plasterwork around the ceiling, and she wanted to rip it all out and make it completely plain. And I got really angry with her, and in a childish outburst said if she touched it, I would chain myself to the gates of the centre and protest. So, and a few weeks later, she left Madhaban and stayed here for as long as she could. So, yeah, I think I drove her away with my anger. I've been very angry with Daddy Janki as well on occasions, and refused totally, avoided her as much as I can. And all these things are very good indications of just how angry we are. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something which needs acknowledging and accepting, and then ultimately overcoming. So there is hope, and if I can overcome a lot of my anger, I'm sure all of you can. So basically, there's a 4-part course or process, and the first part is called the erupting volcano. And if you think of a volcano, it may be dormant for a long time, and then suddenly, a little bit of steam appears, and then there's a little bit of shuddering of the earth, and then a few more tremors, and then before you know it, there's a massive explosion, and the top blows off the volcano, and there's molten lava pouring all over the place, and there's dust everywhere. And a lot of damage is caused by volcanoes. Now, quite often we can be like that. We can appear to be very, peaceful and calm, and then one or two little things start emerging, and then suddenly, before you know it, you can have a massive outburst of anger. And just like with the volcano, it doesn't happen out of the blue. If you think about a volcano, lots of things are happening internally. The Earth's plates are moving, the pressure is building up, and then eventually the pressure can't be withheld any longer, and it all comes out. So we often can be like that. We say it doesn't matter, we ignore it, we suppress it, we pretend it hasn't happened. And then one day somebody says something to us, and it's like a rocket going off, and it comes out with full force. So, if we want to really deal with it, we need to understand our anger, acknowledge it and accept it, and recognize that the damage that it's doing to ourselves and other people. So we'll look at that in a little bit of detail in a minute. Then the second part is going beneath the surface and looking at how our thoughts have a big impact on the way that we see things and on the way we deal with things. So there's a lot that we can do in terms of our thoughts to actually change the way that we handle different people and different situations. Third part, and this actually is probably the most important and the most powerful in some ways. This is going into the depths of the volcano, and it looks at the subconscious aspects of anger. Because there's lots of things from the past which are lurking around inside us, and somebody can quite innocently say or do something which will trigger off a huge reaction inside us. And this is because we've got unresolved issues from the past. And then finally, there's the heart of the matter, which looks at the spiritual aspects of anger. So those are the four parts, and if you work through these parts from the outside in, using techniques from the positive thinking course, techniques and knowledge from the meditation course, then you can actually sort a lot of this out, and your life can become, a lot more peaceful and a lot more happy. And so it's good for Brahmins, also it's good for other people, and it gives them some practical tools and skills which they can use in their daily life. It whets their appetite, and then it encourages them to do the positive thinking course and to do the meditation course. So it's very simple, very practical, very useful. So we seem to have got stuck there. This again is something which often happens when you start changing your anger. Things come before you to challenge you and test you. This happens all the time. So, is there anyone with any technical expertise who can... Oh, look, there it's moving. We'll forget about those. We don't really need things. So, about the erupting volcano. There we go. It's going to give us an understanding of our own anger and a greater awareness. And the most important bit of this is reflective learning. If you can remember and use this tool in your life, it will make a huge difference. It's something which is used outside by lots of different people, including Stephen Covey. And basically it's an inside-out approach to dealing with things. So it fits in very nicely with our BK understanding of things. Basically, we don't look outside at anything or anyone. We don't blame anyone for anything. Our anger is nothing to do with anyone else. It's all to do with us and how we handle it. So the first thing we always have to do is turn inside and observe how we're handling any situation. So if anger starts to arise, we notice it. And then we observe it in a neutral way. We don't beat ourselves up. We don't say, I'm a useless failure, I've got angry again, I'm never going to learn. We actually just say, that's interesting. Why did I handle that situation in that way instead of another? So we use every situation as like being in a laboratory. And then we reflect on it, go deep inside. So, for example, I know in the past, my anger with Daddy Janki has absolutely nothing to do with her at all. Basically, she was triggering off memories inside me of the nun who used to run our school when I was a teenager, and she was very strict, and she used to hit us with a strap for the slightest reason. One angry or one look from Daddy, and immediately all that fear and all that anger from the past would come up. So we reflect on it, and then we think, is there another way of handling things? And we know there's always more than one way of handling any situation. So we learn from the situation. And then we need to practice whatever it is that we've learnt. And if we want to change our behaviour, then we have to practice for a minimum of 21 days or 21 occasions. So if you're in a traffic jam, you hate traffic jams, then There's lots of ways you can handle the traffic jam without getting angry or upset. Put on some nice music, do some deep breathing, use the time to make plans for the future, whatever it may be. There's so many things that we can do in any situation, but if we don't practice regularly to create new patterns of behaviour, then things will not change. And I think this is where certainly myself and maybe other people, fall down. We don't practice enough. We think, well, this is a good idea, and we try it for 2 or 3 days, and then maybe give up on it. So it's all about using the laboratory of our mind and experimenting in our daily interactions to find peaceful ways of dealing with situations which can provoke anger. So very simple, very useful. The price of anger, well, we know we'll have no peace of mind, we'll feel sorrowful, we'll feel guilty, we'll feel ashamed, it spoils our relationships, damages our nervous system, wastes our energy, leads to a loss of judgment and ability to consider the needs of others, and it affects the collective consciousness. And this is very important actually. If you think every time we have a negative, angry thought, we're actually contributing to that negative energy in the atmosphere. And when everybody's doing it, and you only have to walk down the road, certainly in London, people are shouting at their kids, they're beeping their horns, they're slamming their doors, they're doing all sorts of things, they're tutting, they're complaining, they're criticizing. Every time we do all that, we're sending out a negative energy. And ultimately, this energy expresses itself in lots of different ways. Obviously, you can have gang fights, etc. But the ultimate expression of collective anger is what? 3-letter word beginning with W. War, yes. So in countries where people are very angry, it's very easy for them to be led into fighting and led into war. And in fact, on one level we know the world will be destroyed by our anger. Because there will be nuclear war, and there will be rivers of blood flowing in India and everything else. So even though we know that, it's not a case of giving up and saying, well, what's the point? Because we also know we're developing our peaceful sanskars for the future. So even though all this could put us off, we overcome it and we remember what we're doing, and then we do our best to be as peaceful as we can be. So there are some gifts from anger. It gives us insights into ourselves. It's an opportunity to learn and grow and develop new ways of being. It can be a catalyst for change. It increases our strength of character. And it highlights the need for better communication and relationships. And it highlights the need for more self-confidence and self-respect. So this is particularly important because a lot of us have very low self-esteem. And then we end up finding ourselves saying yes to everybody for everything, whether it's the centre in charge or whether it's the boss at work. And then we can end up feeling really resentful because we haven't had the courage to say no. And then one day we just can't take any more, and then we explode. So any form of anger, it's always a message to you that there's something inside you which you need to heal and change. Because basically angry people are unhappy people. There's some unhappiness inside which needs resolving. So here's a definition of anger, which can be quite useful. It's a negative emotional reaction to situations, circumstances or people which disturbs our peace of mind and has harmful consequences for the self and others. It's a negative emotional reaction in the sense that it always makes us feel bad. There's nobody, who will feel happy having got angry with somebody. You might initially say, yes, I told them what I thought, I proved I was right all along. But the next day, you will always feel bad, you will always have regrets, because you're going against your basic nature. Our basic nature is one of peace and love. And so anybody, doesn't matter whether they're a Brahmin or not, they will always feel bad after having been angry. And I used to work as a prison governor in a top security prison dealing with lots of murderers and rapists and terrorists. And one of my jobs was to interview them to see if they had any insight into why they'd done what they'd done. And so many of them were full of very deep regrets because they did things often on the spur of the moment without thinking, often reacting to a situation. Now, if we react, we're no better than an animal, because a reaction is a non-thinking, automatic way of dealing with a situation. So we're no different from a dog that sees a cat and just chases it across the road and gets run over because it was a dual carriageway and didn't see it. So rather than reacting, we need to... The opposite of reacting is what? Responding. Responding means I stop and think, even if it's only for a second. So somebody shouts at me, I could easily shout back and say, who do you think you are talking to me like that? Or I stop for a second and say, maybe, hang on a minute, why are you so angry? Let's sit down and talk about it. And then they tell me, what's just happened, and we can have a decent conversation about it and improve things rather than making things worse. So pouring petrol on a fire is not the way to put out a fire, is it? And quite often when we react, that's what we're doing. We're just putting more fuel on the fire. So crucial to remember the difference between reacting and responding, and also to recognize it's disturbing our natural peace of mind and has very harmful effects. Now these effects are on our health, and once you remember this or know this, you'll never want to get angry again. So it's a very powerful incentive. Every time we get angry, we trigger off the fight and flight reaction in the body. And that is a normal, natural, physiological response to a situation of danger. So even without us thinking about it, the body will automatically start pumping adrenaline around the system, the blood will thicken, there'll be loads of different chemical reactions in the body, all of them negative. So they've, for instance, done an experiment extracting gastric juices from somebody who was stressed, which is connected with anger, injected it into a guinea pig, don't ask me why, and it died within 2 minutes. So we actually put a lot of stress and strain on our body when we get angry. Now, if we're just getting angry once in a while, then that's not a problem. But if we're triggering off this fight and flight reaction every day, then it has serious consequences for our health. Because the immune system goes down, and then we become much more susceptible to things like high blood pressure, coronary heart disease, heart attack, migraines and headaches, and depression. Insomnia, digestive disorders, muscular spasms, skin disorders. So eczema, for instance, is a classic one. It's an expression of extreme antagonism. You're not able to express it verbally, so it just breaks out through your body. Now, it's not to say that everybody with eczema, it's due to that, but there is a strong connection between the two. Likewise, if you're the sort of person who is always suppressing your anger, pretending you're not angry when you are, then you stand a much greater chance of developing cancer. There's a strong correlation between cancer and anger. So if you're suppressing, it will come out that way. If you're expressing and shouting and all the rest of it, you'll trigger off heart disease and a heart attack. So one way or the other, your body will react to the anger inside you. So there's a very powerful incentive to do something about it. We won't go into the behavioural signs or the emotional signs. Some of the feelings: anxious, worried, afraid, ashamed, guilty, inadequate, hopeless, helpless, worthless, useless, suicidal. We feel misunderstood, lonely and alienated. If you're full of angry feelings, and you can't express them to anybody, then it will have a big emotional impact on you. So, we don't want to be like that. We need to deal with it. We need to get to know our anger. And basically we have a choice. In life, there's always a choice, isn't there? We can either go the painful way, or you could call it the mindless way, the senseless way, the regressive way. If we just get angry and, let it all out, or even suppress it, so we can either explode. That's the aggressive way. Then there's the passive aggression, where we implode inside, and that's when we suppress and repress. Any of those ways of handling anger will make things worse, will cause you a lot of distress, a lot of depression, a lot of unhappiness, and basically will be very painful. So, we don't want to go that way. So, it's not traffic control, is it, or anything? It's just a power failure. So it's good. Notice your reaction to the power failure. Are you annoyed, or are you okay about it? And to the fans not being on, are you cursing those fans for going off, or are you happy to be hot? Yeah. So, if we don't want to go the painful way, the opposite way is the peaceful way, the mindful way, the sensible way, the adult way. And there are two ways of achieving that. The first way is through non-violent communication. So in other words, we become assertive. So we know our feelings, we accept our feelings, we express our feelings, but we do it in a way which does not cause harm to anyone else. So if somebody is really annoying us, rather than saying, "You're really annoying me, I can't stand your presence," we have to be very specific and say, "In your company, I get very upset when you slurp your soup." So we're not blaming them, but we're describing what happens to us. Or, in your company, I feel really upset because some of the things that you say to me, I find very distressing. I feel I'm not respected. I feel I'm being abused. You're not actually blaming them, you're just telling them how you're feeling. And then you need to know what you want from the situation. So there's no good telling somebody, "Don't do it." You need to give them a message. "I would prefer it if you would listen to me when I speak. I would appreciate it if you would allow me to express my feelings before you make a decision," etc. So you find new ways in which you express your feelings, because everybody has a right to be heard, everybody has a right to express their feelings and to express their opinions. It doesn't mean to say the other person will always go along with what you're saying, but you have a right to be heard, and the other person has a a duty to listen. So assertiveness is a very important way of dealing with things. And then we have the BK way, which is really about self-mastery and enlightenment. And this is developing such a stage mentally that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. No situation, no person, no circumstance. You remain completely stable, peaceful, powerful and positive. And this is the state that Bubba wants us to get into. So if you'd like to just think for a minute of somebody who you feel is a self-master, never shows any sign of anger, is always strong, always positive, always powerful. It might be a BK, but again it might not be. It could be your next door neighbour, it could be a member of your family, it could be somebody famous like Nelson Mandela. Just think of someone who you consider to be a model of self-mastery, someone that you admire and respect. Could be Brahma Baba, it could be anybody. So if you'd like to just think of somebody, write down their name, please, and then 3 aspects of them which you really appreciate, 3 of their qualities, or 3 of their talents, or 3 of their skills, which enables them to be so powerful and so peaceful. If you haven't got a pen and paper, you can do it mentally. Because I'm going to ask you in a second just to share with the person next to you. Because if you've got a model in your head, then you've got something that you can aspire to, which will help you to overcome any anger that you might be feeling. So has everybody got somebody? So if you'd just like to share in pairs your example of someone who is a self-master, what in particular appeals to you about the way they deal with things. Okay, off you go, just for a couple of minutes. Sorry? Yeah, it can be anybody, someone that you know. It could be a historical person. It could be Jesus. It could be anybody. Just think of somebody. Just share in pairs, just for a couple of minutes. This front row who would like to share their example. Are you sure he's volunteered, or have you forced him into it?
I can share an experience if you want.
Just an example of somebody who, but very quickly, the 3 qualities and their name, Alright, so here we go then, right. So, an inspiring person who is peaceful.
Hello, Om Shanti. In my career, I come across with a gentleman who was working in the next department. One day he and his colleagues, they were having some heated argument. The colleagues started getting more and more angry. But this person was just keeping his cool, and there was even smile on his face. And as he is not responding, the other person was getting more and more angry. Why you are not responding? Why you are not speaking? Speak now. So he was not speaking. He was just keeping his cool. And even there was a smile on his face. Finally, after a long time, the person who was shouting, getting more and more angry, he gave up and he also became quiet. You understand? So that actually scene always reflect on my mind. That person is really very strong within. Though I observe it, to practice is not easy. Let me tell you about myself.
Oh no, no, we haven't got all day, but thank you. So can we have a sister then from round here, please? A sweet sister who never gets angry but has a wonderful role model in her head? And is there an angel sitting around here? Yes, good. All right then.
Historical figures. Hi there, Om Shanti. There is three people I consider to be
One of them.
right. One of them. Well, somebody that I know and I interact with from time to time, and that will be Daddy Janki for me, because she's a very good listener. She's very compassionate, and she's always open-hearted. So that's my role model.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you. So, whenever you get angry, think about, or you get yourself in a challenging situation like I have now with this microphone wire, which is all tangled up. Thank you very much. Think to yourself, how would Daddy Janki deal with it, or how would the man that you know deal with it, and use them as a model, because otherwise it gets very vague, and just saying Om Shanti all the time isn't necessarily sufficient. Okay, so the next thing is the anger process. Now this is a very powerful way of understanding your anger. So what I would like you to do is think of something that makes you angry and write it down. So we're doing the anger process. So the thing that makes you angry is called the trigger. And when that trigger occurs, there will be a number of automatic instant reactions. The first reaction will be in terms of your behavior. So if you'd like to write down several examples of your behavior when the trigger occurs. So for example, say the traffic jam. When I get in a traffic jam, I notice, in terms of behavior, I start beeping my horn and I start shouting and various things like that. Then, write down the physical effects on your body when that trigger occurs. So I notice when I get stuck in a traffic jam, I get a tension headache and my shoulders tighten up and I have a funny feeling in my stomach. So again, if you haven't got a piece of paper and a pen, make a mental note of this, because you're going to be sharing this in a minute with somebody else. So those are the physical effects. Then write down the emotion connected with the trigger. So in terms of the traffic jam, I notice I get angry. So the emotion might be angry, but it could be something else. It could be jealousy, Then the first thought that comes into your head when this trigger occurs. So I get stuck in a traffic jam, my first thought might be, not again, I hate traffic jams. Okay? Then, slightly different but connected, when all this happens, is the outcome positive or negative? So when I get upset in the traffic jam and I shout and swear, does it actually help me or not? And then the final question is, could I handle this trigger in a different way? Is there another way of handling that trigger so that these things don't happen? So in other words, is there another way? So this is a very useful thing. If we can understand and appreciate this model, it can really help you enormously with any anger that you might have. Because what we've done, we've broken down the whole thing into these different reactions. And one of those reactions actually is more important than any of the others. Don't tell me what it is, but when you're thinking of your own anger process, work it out for yourself. Which one is more important? Is it the effects on your body? Is it your behavior? Is it the emotions or the thoughts? A good case can be made for each of these, because like if you punch somebody and then they hit their head on the curb and crack their skull open, you could end up in prison on a murder charge or a manslaughter charge. If you're always getting angry, you could end up with a heart attack or cancer, etc. So there are good reasons for each of these, but one, I would suggest, is more important than any of the others. So if you'd like to maybe stand up this time, please. Stand up. Everybody stand up. And look maybe behind you. Not sharing with the person next to you, but maybe somebody behind you or somebody different. And just share your example and what you think is the most important out of these things. Thoughts, feelings, effects on the body or behavior. So everybody find a new partner, and if you're Spanish, and you're stuck over here, find somebody else who speaks Spanish. Is there anyone who speaks Spanish here? Could you put your hands up? There's a brother over here who needs a Spanish, look, there's several people over there who speak Spanish. So go to the Spanish speaking brothers. And likewise, any other language. So everybody find someone, very important to share. So trigger, behavior, physical effects, emotion, thought. Then outcome, positive or negative. Is there a better way or another way of handling things? It's also on the PowerPoint over here if anybody hasn't seen it. Okay, so was that a helpful exercise to do? Yes, good. So what I would like to do now is just ask, in terms of which you think is the most important, hands up those who think behaviour is the most important of these different reactions. Anyone for behaviour? No? Physical effects on the body. Anybody think that's the most important? Yeah, put your hands up then, just to give me an idea. So there's a few over there, one or two there. All right, good, thank you. Emotions? Anyone for emotions? Must be some Latin Americans and others with lots of emotions. Yeah, so there's a few there for emotions. Anyone for thoughts? Yes, right, that's good. So the majority of you have put your hands up for the thoughts. So you've probably done the positive thinking course. So you know the answer, yeah. So basically, yeah, it's our thought about the trigger which leads to the emotions, and it's that combination of thoughts and feelings which affects the body, and then our behaviour is an outcome of all these internal processes. So this is a very useful model. For a lot of people who haven't done the positive thinking course, when they see this for the first time, it's like a light bulb moment, because it opens you up to a whole new world of thinking and being. So again, we can use the model for other people. So when they're behaving in a certain way, whether it's another Brahmin or whether it's somebody else, we can remember that their body's going to be in tension. We know they're going to be feeling angry or whatever, and they're going to be thinking certain things. So rather than condemning their behavior, we can go inside and ask them how they're feeling, or we can ask them what they're thinking. And then we can have a dialogue, rather than just sticking on this level of complaining about somebody's behaviour and not actually getting anywhere. And just as we can do it with other people, of course, we can do it with ourselves. So if I notice I'm really annoyed about something, and I'm complaining, or I'm slamming down plates and saucepans or whatever, and I notice that I'm really tense, then I need to go inside and ask myself, what am I feeling? And what am I thinking about this situation that I happen to be in at the moment? So I use this to learn about myself and learn about other people. And then, of course, it takes us into the second part of the process, which is all about thoughts. And again, I'm just going to give a very brief summary of this, because normally this would be a course lasting at least 8 or 10 hours, or maybe, as recently in Argentina, it was over a whole weekend, and you can really go into the depths of all of this. But we're just going to do it very briefly. So that last exercise helped us to realize how important our thoughts are. So who creates our thoughts? Who creates them? Yeah, can somebody call out so I can't hear? Yeah, right, we do, alright. So, thoughts. I'm the creator. And of course, if I'm the creator of my thoughts, it also follows that I'm responsible for my thoughts. And then another thing which follows, if I'm the creator of my thoughts, I always have a ... about the thoughts I create. I always have a what? Choice, yes. So I have a choice. And the choice ultimately is between two types of thoughts. What are they? Positive and negative, yes. I mean, I know there's the wasteful thoughts as well, but putting the model very simply, if we use this, it makes it very clear, the whole process. So using this model, can anybody make you angry? No, nobody can ever make you angry. Now quite often we say, so-and-so makes me so angry. Or, the situation in the center makes me so angry, the way, things are done. And as you can see from this model, actually nothing makes you angry. You decide to get angry. And so we have to reclaim our power here, because it's so easy to give it away. And if we're always, feel we're like a puppet on a string, and that the other person makes us do this, we're giving away our power. We're more or less saying there's nothing we can do. We've got to wait for them to change. If you've got something about, if, daddy so-and-so makes you angry, or the centre in charge makes you angry, you're more or less giving away your power and saying, until they change, I'm always going to be like this. So you're going to become passive, you will feel a victim, you will feel hopeless and helpless, you'll be demoralized, and you'll be thinking, there's nothing I can do. And this is not right. Yes? Sorry, am I standing in the way? Or no, I can't. Light. We need some light. Yes. You're not getting angry, are you? No. A bit of light on the stage, so people can see this. Is there anyone who can put the light on? There's brother over there, but he's... Any light, please, for the stage? Read it out again. Okay. Thoughts. I'm the creator of my thoughts, and if I'm the creator of them, I'm responsible. And it also follows that I have a choice over the thoughts that I create in any situation. And the thoughts ultimately boil down to either positive ones or negative ones. The other one, the anger process there, the trigger, behavior, physical effects on the body, emotions and thoughts. And I can guarantee you all wrote down a negative thought about your trigger. Nobody will have written down a positive thought. I can guarantee you'll all have had a negative emotion. So it shows just how powerful this is. So we reclaim our power over our mind, and then that means if we have more time, we can go into different aspects of this. Any form of negativity, any form of criticism, any form of complaining, any form of comparing, any of the isms, in any form of sexism, racism, nationalism, homophobia, one religion thinking it's better than another, they're all different aspects of negative thinking, which will cause tension and will lead to frustration and stress and ultimately anger. So we need to be positive in our thinking, and obviously there's a whole course on that. So, and this way of thinking, it affects our attitude. Do I have a positive mental attitude or do I have a negative one? So an example I often use, is so much water in the cup. That's nice. Is it half empty or is it half full? Some will say half empty, some will say half full. Both are right, but the consequences of thinking it's half empty are that I'm going to keep it to myself because there's not much here. Whereas if I think it's half full, I won't mind sharing it with you. So, do you have a complaining attitude? When it's very hot, are you always complaining? When it's very cold, are you always complaining? When it rains, are you complaining? Or do you always have a positive attitude to everything? What about, do you have a lot of expectations? Anybody with any expectations, they're doomed to being frustrated and angry, because expectations are a form of control, trying to control other people. Getting angry because somebody doesn't turn up at the centre on time for morning class. Getting angry because they've forgotten that it's their turn to help, cook the borg, and you're left to do it again. All these different situations which can occur. They should know better. They've been in Gyan all these years. Why are they doing this? All those questions which we're told to forget. The why, the what, the where, the when, etc., are all based on expectations and will lead to lots of complications. So again, this is part of the mental side of it. So instead of expectations, we need hope. Hope is much more fluid, much more flexible. So I hope everybody will turn up in time for morning meditation. I hope so-and-so remembers that it's her turn to cook borg. I hope the program will be a success. I hope lots of people will turn up. If you put on a program and only 20 turn up and you were expecting 100, you're going to get frustrated and disappointed and bitter and resentful. Well, after all the work I put in, only 20 people have turned up, and a whole series of negative thoughts and feelings will lead to you feeling stressed and angry. So very, very important, get rid of all expectations. And just have hope and faith and things like that. So that's more or less the thought side of things. Beliefs are a crucial aspect of it. Most of us are conditioned and are running very subtle negative belief systems which we inherited from our parents and from the media and things like that. And if we have more time, I could give you a questionnaire which will reveal the extent of your negative beliefs which are running your life. But we haven't time to do that, but it's something that you need to pay attention to, because a lot of us are running around using outdated beliefs from our childhood which we're not really aware of and we've never really questioned. So for example, if somebody believes life is full of conflict and suffering, and the key word there is full, and you're living on a road, with 100 houses, and in 99 of them, everyone's leading a perfectly normal, happy life, if you believe life is full of conflict and suffering, you will only notice the one family where everything is going wrong. Likewise, you'll only notice the bad programs on the television. You'll only notice certain magazine articles or newspaper articles. You will recreate your own world based on your beliefs. So if you're full of tension and full of fear, then you need to look at your beliefs and change them if you want to. So that's the second part of the process. The third part of the process, and again, often the pens run dry on me, which is always a nice test. So I do have another one, so it's all right. If this one runs dry, I don't know what I'm going to do, but anyway, we'll see. So no anger yet. So you'll remember from the meditation course, we've got the mind of the map here. We have our conscious mind with all our thoughts and feelings which we're aware of. Our subconscious mind here. Then we have our behavior over here. And we have our intellect. Intellect is the bit which makes decisions. The intellect is the bit which discriminates, etc. Now, most of us have loads of memories from the past. And associated with the memories there will be the feelings and everything else. And they become like trigger points or buttons. And all the positive thinking in the world and all the shantis in the world will not make any difference if I'm a seething mass of angry feelings from the past. If I haven't come to terms with my past and recognized it and released it, then I'm always going to be a potential bomb waiting to go off. So, using myself as an example, I used to get called beanpole at school for some strange reason. You know, beanpole is a long cane that you use to support plants. And because I was always tall, you know, right from an early age, always taller than everyone else. And along with being called beanpole, the boys in the school always used to whack me on the back and stick their leg out and hope I'd trip over. So I had many experiences like that, which obviously they don't make you feel very good. So there can be lots of anger there. So, somebody in the here and now, one of you could come up to me and call me beanpole, just jokingly, being nice and friendly. Hello, beanpole. And then I might explode and whack you one in the face, you know. And you might wonder, why on earth did he do that? I just called him a beanpole. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It was only a joke. But it would have brought up all my beanpole experiences in one very intense moment of powerful feelings which will override everything and lead to me saying or doing something which I might regret. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we've all got these sorts of triggers inside us. And the key thing that which we need to do is let go of all the feelings, the angry feelings connected with those events. We can't deny the event has happened, but we can release the feelings connected with the event. And this is crucial if we want to make progress in our Brahmin life. Because even if we want to say, let Baba take it all from me, he can't take it from you if you don't know what it is you want him to take. So, this is my angle on it. I mean, Daddy Janki might have a different one, but in my experience, this is what I've had to do. So we need to learn to let go. Let go of all the feelings connected with events from the past. And this is quite, a very interesting process. There's loads of different things that you can do to let go. So one of the first things that I did, it was a few years ago now, in Madhaban, in Baba's room, I was trying to be peaceful, and all these angry feelings were coming up, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm sitting here saying Om Shanti and wanting to experience peace, and I was just a mass of anger. And then I had a touching, if you like, to start thinking, well, why am I so angry? And during the course of 2 hours, it was quite a long time, I went back to the first memory of when I was angry for the first time, and that was when my grandmother left me in a pram, probably about 15 months old, in a basement garden with a big high wall around it, and I was scared. I can remember her just shouting at me, leaving me out there, slamming the door, and I screamed my head off for half an hour. Well, that's what it felt like anyway. So the trick is not to go into all the details. Why did she do that? Wasn't she horrible and all the rest of it? But just to remember the incident and then let go of all the feelings connected with it. And I found Once I started, from way back then, there were loads of different incidents. Like, when I was 12 or 13, a couple of lads deliberately tripped me up on the bus and I broke my nose. So I let go of the anger connected with that. And then, having gone through everything I could think of, I then went back and forgave each person. And I think that's a very important aspect. Otherwise, you're not sealing and finishing it off. It could all come back again. Now, some people might say, why should you forgive anybody? Let them. They deserve all the hatred and the anger that I have for them. But, who is being damaged the most through the anger and the hate? It's myself. So one of these overcoming anger programs, there was an elderly German Jewish lady present, and she came on the course and said, I can't get rid of my anger for the Nazis, for what they did to my grandmother and my friends. And there she is in her late 70s or whatever, every day still hating, even though most of the Nazis are dead and gone. And she did the course, and there's one particular thing about attitude, which is a handout which we give people to read, which clicked, made sense for her. She suddenly realized what she was doing to herself. You cannot change the past, but you can change the way you see the past and the way you deal with the past. She came back the next week a new woman. The anger and the hatred had gone, and she'd had, 6 nights good sleep for the first time in her life. She was so full of energy and so pleased. So it really does work. But the key thing is you have to really want to let go. Some people do not want to let go. They hang on to the past because they get a lot from it. They get sympathy from other people. It feeds their victim personality because they're scared to stand on their own 2 feet. They're scared to be independent, so they hold on to it and milk it for all it's worth. So it's crucial to let go and say forgiveness is one aspect. But before that really comes acknowledging and accepting the past and the angry feelings that we have about the things that were done to us when we were young. If we keep on suppressing them, they don't go away, so we need to face them. And that does need courage. But in meditation you can do it, and you can see them as things coming up to say goodbye. So we don't go into all the detail, but we let them come up from the depths, and almost like smoke, they're coming up before us to say goodbye. We might end up crying a lot, we might, all sorts of things can come out, but that's okay, because it's healing. What we're doing is we're healing ourselves, because underneath all of that, we know we're beings of peace and we're beings of love. And these are just things which have happened. And in fact, they may even be blessings in disguise. So again, another thing is to reinterpret the past and look for the good things that you've got out of it. So doing one of these courses somewhere, there was a woman who ran a women's refuge for women who were subject to domestic violence. And she said, if it wasn't for the awful time my father gave my mother and me, I would never have opened this refuge. So she turned it round and transformed the experience into something positive. So she became grateful for the experience because it taught her so much. Now we also know the law of karma and things like that come into it, but if we can reinterpret things and see the benefits and get out of the victim mode, it can make a real big difference. So we're acknowledging, accepting, we're seeing the benefits. So I would say, through different things that have happened to me, I've got a lot more empathy for people than I would have had otherwise. Then, if we can step back a little bit from the situation and see the bigger picture, this again can make a big difference. So, because it gives us understanding. So some people call it, I think, the third position. So you're looking at the child, you're looking at the parent, and you're there as the third person, the observer, looking at what went on between the two people and trying to understand things. Now again, if you can look back and understand the people who've been angry with you, with the knowledge which we have now, which basically means anyone who is angry with you, they were unhappy people. Why were they unhappy? And then you can look back into their own lives. So, for example, I often felt angry with my mother because I didn't feel she gave me the love that I wanted. When I was older, and then I looked back and understood where she came from, where she was brought up on a little peasant farm in Ireland, and there were 4 children, one of whom hadn't been born before the father died. So the mother was pregnant with the 4th child and had 3 others to bring up all by herself on a little peasant farm. She had to use the children as labourers because she couldn't afford to buy in any labour. They had a very hard life. My mother was terrified of her own mother, and when you think about all of that, it can help you to understand that actually she did a good job in her own way, considering the background that she came from. So with understanding, there comes compassion. So even with all the murderers that I dealt with, when I heard their whole story, I couldn't judge them, I couldn't blame them, I couldn't condemn them. The only thoughts I had actually was if I'd been through all the things they'd gone through, I could easily have done the same myself. When you know the full picture of somebody's history. So compassion comes and mercy comes. And then the other thing which we've all got access to, obviously, is love. So loving ourselves and loving all the people involved is a very healthy way of healing things. Apart from that, other ways of bringing out the feelings, which are very, very useful, to write a letter to the person, even if they're dead and gone, it doesn't matter. You just release all the feelings, how you felt at the time about the way they dealt with you. And then, obviously, don't send it to them, but tear it up or burn it, get rid of it. So that can be useful. Or another way, which is very, very powerful, you get 2 chairs, you sit in one chair, and you tell the person you're feeling really bad about exactly what you think of them. You let it all out from the past. You always ignored me. You never gave me the love I needed, etc., etc. Really bring it out with full force, and then go and sit in their chair and reply from their perspective to what you've just said. And the initial reaction might be, say, from your mother, "You ungrateful little girl, after all I've done for you, the way I gave up my career for you, and I stuck in an unhappy marriage for you, how dare you say all these things?" And then you go back and you give a reply. And you'll know exactly what your mother would have said, and you'll know exactly what you need to say, or your father, whoever it may be. And if you do that 2 or 3 times, it's fascinating what happens. What happens at the end of it? Yes, you do. You embrace the other, or you say, I love you. Because when you understand the full picture, all you can say is thank you and I love you. So that again can be very, very healing. Very, very effective. And then the other thing, of course, is to write it all in a letter to Bubba and put it in Bubba's box. Hands up those who use Bubba's box to write letters to get rid of all the things from the past. So probably half or so, yeah. So for the other half then who haven't done it, half the karmic accounts from this birth will be wiped off if you write everything with honesty to Bubba. So that again was very, very useful for me. 6 pages of foolscap, lots of tears, but I got rid of it all, or most of it. But again, the thing is, we have got lots of other births to deal with, and things can come up from the past which we weren't expecting. So very, very useful, all these different techniques. And once you get into all of this and let go, then there won't be anything in there, or very little in there left to disturb you or to upset you. Then the positive thinking will be much more effective because there's nothing there to block it. And then finally, the spiritual aspects, which is the heart of the matter, a lot of this you will know already, so I can summarize it quite, quickly and easily. Obviously, as spiritual beings, we are open to a lot more ways of helping ourselves. First thing is recognizing and remembering the law of karma. Whatever we give out, we're going to get back. So when we know that, even though we might have had a terrible past and maybe feeling really angry about it, we know if we can be loving and positive in the present with all those people involved, then that will lead to a positive outcome in the future. So that's very, very helpful. And the other one, which there's various things. There's the 8 powers we can tap into. There's using our virtues to overcome things. But one which I find very helpful is the law of entropy. Everything starts off new and becomes old. Everything goes from order to chaos. Everything goes from powerful to powerless. And in a way, the history of the soul is one of being very powerful to begin with. Here we are. And this is so one axis is power, the other axis is time. So we start off very, very powerful when we first come onto the earth. Over time, we lose our power, and we end up down here feeling demoralized, distressed, and depressed because we've got a deep memory inside that we've been much happier, much more loving, much more peaceful, than we are now. There's that memory there. So in other words, there's a feeling that I want to go back to how I have been in the past. And again, understanding this is very useful. On this side of the line, this is when we were soul conscious. And when we're soul conscious, we're always giving and we're always positive. This side of the line, we start losing it and we become much more body conscious. More and more as time goes by, we go from giving to taking. And when you're taking from people and you're always wanting things from people, you're much more prone to anger. And again, rather than being positive, we're negative. And really what Raj Yoga is all about, my understanding of it is we're reconnecting with the source of power, aren't we, with Baba, in order to recharge ourselves and return to our original state of happiness and peace. And so ultimately, Baba is the one who will recharge the battery. Baba is the one who will transform us, but he's not going to do it without our cooperation. He's not going to do it without our understanding. He's not going to do it without us making effort ourselves to sort out our anger. And so, this is where, if you like, it all comes together. If I'm aware of all the things that make me angry, and I want to let go, then obviously I can give it to Baba. But until I've done some work on it, I'm not going to be able to do that. So that's a brief summary of more or less the whole of the course. And what we're going to do now is just finish with one very powerful affirmation which will help you in any situation. And for public courses, this always has a stunning impact, and it's so simple. So simple. So you need to sit back and relax. So make sure your legs are uncrossed, unless you're in lotus position, on the floor. And so your feet firmly on the floor. And again, another very important tip to deal with any form of stress and any form of anger is to breathe deeply. So really, we should always be breathing from the diaphragm. So in other words, we make sure we fill our lungs from the bottom to the top. So we're taking in more oxygen, and that will release more endorphins and will make us feel better. So just have a little practice at the breathing. So your shoulders should not rise. Your shoulders should remain steady and stable. And the only thing that should be moving is your stomach muscles. As you breathe in, your stomach muscles will expand, and then as you breathe out, they will contract. So your stomach muscles become like a pair of bellows. And you breathe in slowly, deeply and gently. Hold it for the count of 3, and then slowly release through the mouth. Now once you've got used to that, all you need to do then is just turn within and then create a peaceful space in your mind, and then just repeat quietly in your mind the words I'm about to say. I am a peaceful being. I am a peaceful being. I am a peaceful being. I am. Peace. I am. Om Shanti.